Yes, this particular lot we've actually had a house that's been demolished. So since it's been demolished, cleared out all the soil. We've also got some screw piles now starting to go in behind us. And this is in lieu of concrete piers. So this is ideally a replacement for concrete or a foundation. So it goes below the slab, so you actually never get to see it, but it's a real strong part of the integrity of the foundations. It's one of those things that you don't see, but it's probably the most important thing in a house. It holds your slabs, it holds your walls, it's load rated. Without your foundations or without proper foundations, you're susceptible to slab heave or slab movement. So obviously down the track in 50, 80, 100 years time, if this house is demolished, you can just simply come along and once the slab's been removed, we can screw the piles out and they go back into more steel for more things to come. So if you're using concrete here, you'd be looking at around 5 days in an ideal world with no rain. Using the Katana system, you'd be looking between 2.5 to 3 days, rain, hail or shine. We went through the exercise recently with Swinburne University. Studies have come back and third-party vetted that the system that we're seeing behind us is 79% less carbon throughout that building concrete face. So yeah, it's definitely more viable and better for the environment than just using the old-fashioned concrete, and quicker. Time is money.
Well, screw piles are basically a steel shaft with a helix at the bottom, and they get screwed into the ground until they get really tight. It's like a wood screw that you'd get at Bunnings, and when they get really tight, you know you've achieved your torque, and that means you've achieved your bearing capacity and the screw piles are going to work and support whatever you've got on top of the screw piles. 1833, a clever engineer called Alexander Mitchell patented the first screw piles, and in 1838 they started to be used on the Maplin Sands lighthouse on the River Thames, and then up the east coast of the US there were 100-odd lighthouses that were built out of screw piles. The reason why it didn't take off was because it relied on horsepower or manpower to put them in, so you could only really have smaller screw piles taking lighter loads. But with the auger motor that you can see behind us that hangs off the digger, that can drive the screw pile in at significant torque, and so we can use bigger screw piles for bigger loads. People are starting to think about sustainability much more. I mean, for us, even the timber dunnage that we use between our piles that come to site, we take that back to the factory and that all gets palletised and goes back to our fabricator in Brisbane. So we don't leave anything on site. So that, I think people have to think about sustainability and stop throwing things in the rubbish bin. So there's a little bit more planning, I think, with screw piles and the modular builds. But as soon as that planning's done and everyone understands how the screw piles are going to connect to the building, the rest is really easy because we can get a date from the prefabrication company and they'll know when they come to site the screw piles are there, it's ready to land the building and there's no fuss or no delay. I love this product. I love the fact that we're helping people build smarter. I love the sustainability part of it. We're doing some really neat stuff on product design at the moment, which is going to be a bit of a game changer for the modular space. So I love what we do and what we stand for, and the fact that we take sustainability on. This is how the Katana screw pile works. This is a 3rd scale model, and what I'm going to demonstrate here is to screw the screw pile into the soil. And what happens with the screw pile and this model is it gets harder and harder to screw in, and this is what we call torque in the industry. And when you've got enough torque, and you know then that you've reached the capacity of your screw pile, and that's what happens to your screw pile, and that shows the downward force that can be applied to a screw pile, me lifting this vase, and that's how screw piles work. Screw piles compared to board piers. Board piers, you dig a hole in the ground and there's a lot more concrete that goes in compared to screw piles, so you can see it's a much better technology when you compare Katana screw piles to board piers.